So, what if I told you that a kind of forgotten medical theory from the 20th century might just hold the key to solving some of our most stubborn 21st century health problems? It's a pretty bold idea, right? Well, today we're going to dive into a fascinating and really unique model of health that asks us to look at our own bodies in a totally different way. So, check this out. This is a page from the actual book where this whole theory started. You can think of it as an attempt to build a bridge between ancient holistic wisdom and modern medical science. And honestly, as we face this huge crisis of chronic disease today, the ideas in these pages, well, they might be more relevant than ever before. Okay, so before we can really unpack this theory, we've got to go back in time a bit. We need to understand the world it came from because for most of human history, the way we thought about healing was, well, it was a whole different ballgame from what we know today. I mean, all across the globe, you had these incredible traditions of healing that flourished for centuries. You had Greek Unani medicine, which gave rise to Islamic Tibb. You had Ayurveda over in the Indian subcontinent, and of course, traditional Chinese medicine. Now, here's the wild part. Even though they developed thousands of miles apart, they all shared a remarkably similar core belief about the human body. See, they didn't see the body as just a collection of separate parts. They saw it as a small reflection of the entire universe, like a mini-universe, or a microcosm. They believed our health was all about a state of balance, and that we're governed by the very same natural laws that control the seasons, the elements, the whole cosmos. So, this is where you see the big contrast. On one hand, traditional medicine was all about a holistic understanding. It focused on things like diet, lifestyle, and a person's unique temperament or their natural constitution. On the other hand, you have modern medicine, which has given us unbelievable advances, but it often takes a very different path. It's focused on treating specific symptoms or targeting individual diseases.
And don't get me wrong, that specialized approach has led to some amazing life-saving breakthroughs. But it's also happened at the same time as this huge rise in chronic, lifestyle-related conditions that just don't always respond well to a symptom-by-symptom approach. And that leads us to this really critical question. What if we could somehow connect the ancient wisdom with our modern knowledge?
Well, it turns out someone tried to do just that. In the 20th century, a physician named Dr. Sabir Multani set out on that exact mission. And what he came up with was this revolutionary, but also really elegantly simple framework for understanding the human body. Meet Dr. Dosat Mohammed Sabir Multani. He developed this really comprehensive system he called Tibb-e-Sabir. And right at the heart of it was this powerful new idea, one that was designed to make sense of both health and disease in a totally integrated way. He called it Nazria Mufrad Aza, which basically translates to the simple organ theory. And the premise? It's pretty profound. It suggests that all health and all disease, all of it, can be traced back to the state of balance or imbalance between just three principal systems in our body. That's it. And his work, which he detailed in these extensive writings, wasn't just some philosophical musings. It was a serious attempt to create a scientific model that could actually bridge that gap between ancient ideas of elements and humors and our modern understanding of anatomy and physiology. Okay, so what are these three pillars? What's the secret sauce here that supposedly holds the key to our well-being? Let's break this model down. At its very core, it all boils down to three principal organs: the brain, the heart, and the liver. According to Dr. Multani, perfect health is simply a state of equilibrium, a perfect balance between the functions that are governed by these three powerhouses. So, think of it like this. The brain and our nerves, that's our nervous system, the body's command and control center. The heart and our muscles, they drive the muscular system, which handles all our movement and circulation. And finally, the liver and our glands, they power the endocrine system, which manages literally everything from metabolism to detoxification. All right, so understanding the pillars of health is one thing. But the real power of this theory, what makes it so interesting, is how it explains what happens when things go wrong. How does illness actually get started, according to this model? This quote from the source material just cuts right to the chase. The theory says, hold on a second. Instead of there being 1,000 different causes for 1,000 different diseases, maybe the root cause is always the same, a simple imbalance in one of these three fundamental systems. So, the path to getting sick supposedly follows this clear pattern. First, some kind of disturbance. Let's say you're super stressed for months, or your diet is off. It creates an imbalance. That overload causes one of the three systems to get pushed either into overdrive or to become underactive. Then that directly affects its main organ, the brain, heart, or liver. And only after all that do the symptoms that we call a disease finally show up. Now, just think about the implication here for a second. It's huge. It means that conditions that seem totally different, like migraines, heart disease, or metabolic disorders, might not actually be separate problems at all. Instead, they could just be different symptoms of the exact same root imbalance, just showing up in different systems. And that brings us full circle, right back to where we started. Why does a theory from the last century matter so much to us right now? Well, because you just have to look around. Our world is facing an absolute tidal wave of chronic conditions, everything from diabetes to autoimmune diseases. And these are the kinds of illnesses that often challenge a purely symptom-based approach and leave so many people just searching for answers. The people who champion the simple organ theory believe it offers a really crucial perspective. But for it to be more than just a cool idea, it's got to be put to the test, right? It needs rigorous scientific validation, academic recognition, and maybe even a look from policymakers. Only then could it really offer a framework for a more integrative approach to medicine. And so, at the end of the day, we're left with this really fascinating question. Could looking back at a simple, elegant, unified model of the body actually be one of the best ways to move forward and tackle the really complex health challenges that are still ahead of us? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for diving into this with me.